Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Qul huwallahu ahad. Allahu samad. Lam yalid walam yulad. Walam yakun lahu kufuwan ahad.
Assalamu alaikum, and what's the crack with you? This is the story of how and why I became Muslim. So some of you'll know at this point that my name's Jason. I'm 37. I was brought up in Northern Ireland. I live in Belfast, and I grew up like many people did here in the north of Ireland in a Christian environment, in a Christian house. I was taken to church as a child, and as a teenager, I took that decision on myself to be a Christian and to follow it very religiously, you could say. And it was a big part of my life, and I never ever imagined that I would become a Muslim. I spent the whole of my 20s, I would describe myself looking back as an atheist. I kind of strayed very far away from the church, away from God, kind of lost heart in the Christian message. But I never thought about looking into any other religion. I studied theology as my undergraduate degree, so I was very interested in religion in general, the impact it can have on individuals, on society. But as I said, throughout all my 20s, particularly when I moved to Belfast from the rural area where I'm from, I really lost interest, to be honest. I lived in England for 12 years, and that was a lot of fun. But fast forward to the spring of 2023, and I made a trip to Sierra Leone in Western Africa. I was invited there by a contact that I have, who a friend of mine now, who's a Muslim, Hassan, who runs an organization, a social work organization there, and we made contact through Twitter at the time. My career is I'm a social worker, and that's how we got in discussions with each other. That's how we made contact. And he said, why don't you come out to Sierra Leone and see the work that we're doing here in social work? And I love traveling. And I thought to myself, wow, what an amazing opportunity this would be. I'd never been to Western Africa. And so I went. And I didn't realize that I was going during Ramadan, for one thing. And second of all, whenever my friend picked me up from the ferry, I got into his car and he was playing the Quran through his radio, and it just struck me as something so beautiful. I'd been to other Muslim countries before, been to Morocco, been to Egypt, but I don't think I'd ever heard the Quran being played in this way. There was something about it that really struck me. And looking back now, this is probably when the seed was planted and I started to become interested in Islam. But as I say, this kind of planted the seed, and I came back to England then after my month away in Sierra Leone in the spring of 2023. And I just had Islam on my mind. And that summer, I got into the habit of running. I lived in Sussex, along the south coast, and I got into the habit at night time of running along the seafront. And I started using TikTok more and more at that point, and I came across these nasheeds. I saw a website that said that they would send you a free Quran to read. I'd never in my life read the Quran, and I thought, yeah, I want to get my hands on one of these and see what it's all about. That summer, I read the whole Quran. And I spent hours and hours and hours watching YouTube videos of Muslim scholars debating Christian scholars, and I started to really understand the message of Islam. I was floored, to be honest. I had never heard people discuss some of these issues in the way that they were doing. And they asked questions like, if Jesus is God, then why did he cry out, my God, or why did he describe God, the Father, as his God? If Jesus is God, then how can he have died? And even though I'm very interested in religion, I've thought about Christianity a lot. Some of these questions I'd never asked myself, and I actually started to reread the New Testament and look at it from an Islamic perspective. And it seemed to me that Jesus was always pointing us to God, never claiming to be God himself. Never wanting or asking to be worshipped himself, but always encouraging us to look to God, to follow God, to submit to God. And what I started to realize was that this is the consistent message of Islam. It all was the same message, that we should submit and repent to God and worship only him. And I realized this is what Jesus was saying, this is what Muhammad was saying, And it all just started to piece together for me. And actually, it came to a point at that stage where I found all of this a bit kind of unsettling and a bit unnerving, because any revert might say the same thing. Like, becoming a Muslim is so much more than just accepting the theology and accepting the belief. When you come from a completely different kind of environment, there's something about it that challenges your identity. The idea of the Trinity was the way that I really understood God and understood how to connect with God and speak to God. So when that was kind of started to be stripped away, I didn't really know how to feel. In September, I moved back home to Northern Ireland after being away in England for 12 years. That was a monumental, big decision for me. When I did come back, I decided I wanted to start going to the mosque. I wanted to try and get involved in the Muslim community somehow. And I remember turning up at the Belfast Islamic Centre here. I didn't know anything about Friday prayers, Jummah prayers, but I came along on the Friday and there were loads of people outside. And I'm quite a confident, outgoing person, and I don't mind putting myself in situations that are uncomfortable, but I felt so out of my depth. I got talking to a really friendly guy who I'm good friends with now, Pakistani guy, and he probably could see that I was nervous, and I said that I wanted to go in, but I wasn't sure. And he was just coming out, and he said to me, "Do you want me to go inside with you?" And so we went inside. I sat at the back. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I didn't pray. I just kind of sat there and observed and everything else. This felt like a completely new world for me. And what I started to do every week was just to go back on the Fridays, and I would just sit at the back. And I did this for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I was just listening, I was observing, I got kind of chatting to people, I started to become familiar with people's faces. And in December 2023, I made the decision to take my Shahada and become a Muslim. At that point, I'd done so much reading, I'd finished the whole Quran, I'd spent a lot of time, understanding, listening, learning about Islam. And for me, I just knew I had to do it. I wanted to do it. It felt like the right thing for me. And even though, as I said, I never in a million years could have imagined that I would become a Muslim, it has been the best decision that I have ever made.
نبيا ورسولا.
تكبير الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر.
They say Allahu Akbar, Allah is the great, وَلِلَّهِ الْحَمْدِ, and all praise belong to Allah.
Okay.
This is the meaning. They are very happy, that you join. Yes.
This was just the beginning of a very exciting new chapter in my life.